Hey guys, what's going on? All muscle. Back on my GTR here. I'm going to go around and show you the things that we've done so far and things that we're going to still be needing to do. First off, when I first bought the car, the tail light here was cracked, so we've already replaced the tail light. Got a new tail light on there. And then on the last video, we had the interior completely tore down. And so far, we've got it all cleaned up. We've got the rear panel that was missing. We got that installed. Got the carpeting all back in. Got it all cleaned up. I had to remove the shifter here. The transmission was giving off an up-down selector shift selector code. Seeing that there was a ton of buildup of soda and whatever and whatnot that had fallen into the shifter and got into the contact points, I was thinking that might be the issue. So once we get that all fired up and get the battery all back on, we'll find out if that clears our code as soon as we get to drive it. But I think that was what the case was, because the reading online, the up and down selector switch, there's two of them, one on the paddles, on the steering wheel, and then the one that's on the actual shifter itself. On the front here, we had to do some work on the frame rail. I'll show you what I did here. So now we've got the frame rail. At this point, it's got the crash bar, it bolts right into place. What I had to do, this frame rail here was slightly tweaked. I had showed it in one of my previous videos, and we had to massage that back out. Now, this front cover plate right here, basically I undid the tack welds on it. There was some welding. There was welding here, and I just cut the welds off. Of course, the school bus has to pass by here. That happens every day at this time. But anyways, the tack welds that were here, I basically just cut into those. And then there was a couple, actually I'm sorry, these weren't tack welds, these were just drag welds here. There was two tack welds here. Now I've obviously got it coated with the filler. And then there was two tack welds down in this lower section. And then there was also a drag weld down here at the bottom. So once I did that, I was able to remove this cap per se. So this cap came out, and then once I got it removed, I was able to flatten out because this was concaved in here on this bolt and then down in this area. So basically, when I try to put the crash support, crash impact bar on, the threads were like all sorts of different ways. So now that I got those all straightened out, that came out real nice. Of course, I had to massage this area here, and the filler is only on here because of number one, I had to fill in the tack welds that I drilled out. I had to fill those in with weld, and then some hammer marks that I had to use a hammer and dolly in here. So I put my dolly in here and would hammer it. So basically, the filler is on here. Most of this is going to get sanded off. It's just on there. This is the coating. As soon as you put it on, of course, it looks like that. But then when I shape it, it should look a lot nicer than that. Now it's just going to be a skim coat. There's not any damage. There's all the metal still here. There's no damage besides the hammer marks and the weld fills there. But as far as that's concerned, that frame rail's perfectly fine at this point. Again, we had to fix the crash bar. The crash bar had a crease in here, and it was probably, I don't know, it was like out to here. So after putting it on the press and putting in some new plate in the front there and patch welding it in, I had to re-weld this area here. I haven't sanded that down yet, but I'll sand it down and make it look a little bit more free of scratching there. But what happened was I put a filler piece in here, welded it all up. Come to find out, it was too short, and the bumper needed to flex out a little bit more. So when I went to flex it out, I had to re-weld some areas that split on me. So This one here is basically it was set on the car, and then after I've got it to line up. After I got it to line up with both frame rails, then I did a tack welded it on the car, removed it, and finished on the welds there. So that came out perfect. Now these also were missing. I don't know, the engine compartment doesn't seem complete without that, so we had to order these. I have a cover for this side, this for the brake fluid res, and then also I have a cover that goes on the battery side, so we're going to be putting those on here shortly, but not just quite yet. We're going to clean up this area first off. Now, the next thing I'll be doing actually is obviously I'm going to be sanding this down, getting that shaped up real nice. Then what I'll do is, let me show you what I've got here. This is an E-coat. Now what this is basically the primer that matches the factory original primer here. If you see this primer underneath inside your fender wells and your frame rails and whatnot, this is actually not your ordinary primer that you would get and just spray a gray or a light gray or a black or whatnot. It's actually got a tint to it, and as you can see, this one specifies it's a light green. So this would this is what it says here: matches OEM E-coat to quickly restore factory appearance. So okay, so once I'm done doing that here, once I'm done sanding this, I'm going to go ahead and E-coat it per se. After I do that, then I'm going to come around with some of the black that I've got, and I'm going to try to match basically what they've done here. This is just some overspray of the black, when they painted the panels on the car, and it's kind of just fogged. It's kind of just got like a fog look. So I'm going to try to match that here as best as I can. Try to make it look factory original, just to keep it kind of looking original. Now the damage was obviously there, but now that it's been repaired, we're going to set it back as nice as we possibly can. It's going to probably look just like something like this here. So that after we do that, we'll get the crash bar on, and then also the air guide that goes up front. The original piece was cracked. Basically sits up here on the front core support, and it holds in the intercoolers and the rest of the components up here in the front. So when I do that, I'll show you guys that. I'll make another video on that. But as for right now, the GTR is coming along. We've got a little bit of a smoke smell still inside the car, which I'm hoping will go away. Actually, after we still haven't done the door panels, so once we do the door panels, obviously there's a nice big piece of carpeting in there that might be retaining some of the smell. Also, we'll clean up around the door frames. But as far as smell in here, it's about 80% better. I would say there's about a 15% smell still left in there. But anyways, she's coming along. I still need a new set of wheels and tires. I don't want a new set per se. I'd like to get just a used factory set that maybe was a takeoff early in the car's life. Somebody has now I found a couple that somebody had stored, but I think the price on them was like $2,000, and at that point it's like I might as well just put some tires on this and call it even, because I've already got the wheels. That they just need a little bit of love. Maybe I'll just have them sent out and powder coated. That might be a cheaper route for me, but yeah, $2,000 on them. I'm probably good. I'm probably good on a set anywhere between $1,200 and $1,500. If you got something like that, I'd be willing to talk about that. But if you want $2,000 for them, I can't do it. It's not because they're not worth it. Maybe they are worth it, maybe they're not. I just can't afford it in the budget of this car. I'm actually looking to, once I'm finished with this, I'm looking to probably just send it back through and put it for sale. So if I was keeping the car, then I might put some snazzy wheels on it, or the budget wouldn't really matter as much. But anyways, for right now, I am looking still for a set of wheels if I can get some. But I'd like I said, to have somebody that had taken them off early on in the car's life, upgraded to something that was something nicer or spicier, and not too many miles on the tires, so that way I can show, the car can show a little bit nicer. Now actually on the interior, let me just go over this piece here. I guess this is a common issue. I guess this bubbles, this little film that's on here. I think it's like an aluminum film or something. That's what it feels like. But anyways, I guess this is a common problem in scratching like this. I go to price this piece out, and first off, I found some people that had been parting out some of these cars, and you know, I guess that's the first piece to go when people start parting out these cars. People want this piece, and I guess it's a common issue where it just doesn't. There's the part number there, 96941 JF10A. So look that part number up if you guys want to see something absolutely ridiculous. This part here at the Nissan dealer, the cheapest I found it for was $390. I think if you just go in and lay your cock on the table and have them you know, get ready to chop it off, they'll charge you about $450, $475 for this part. Now that's absolutely ridiculous, guys. The parts on these cars don't cost any more money to make. I'm sorry. This wheel here is an aluminum wheel. It's a 20-inch wheel. It does not cost any more money to make this wheel than it does cost. It costs the same amount of money to make this wheel as on a Nissan Pathfinder, guys. The only reason that these cars, the parts on these cars are so expensive, is because they can get the money for them. And it's, you know, these bolts. Okay, this bolt off of a Nissan Pathfinder is 52 cents. You go to look it up for this car, it's $5. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. You know, I could, for the price that it's costing me to rebuild some of this stuff on this car, I could have probably bought a solid piece, you know, a nice daily driver, or a you know, just a decent car for the wife, whatever or whatnot. You know, $5-6 grand that I'm gonna be dumping into this car. Another ridiculous priced item on this car. When I got up underneath and looked underneath, the so-called the diffusers is what they're called, the underbody diffusers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's two inserts that go on the back of the bumper on the corners. There's also pieces in there, but just for the main pieces, the 4 main pieces, I was looking at something ridiculous, like in the neighborhood of $5 grand through Nissan, just to replace the diffusers. Now, I think I have 1 here, so the car is missing 3 of them. So this diffuser here, this is what this is called. This piece here lays up underneath the car. Okay, so I think this piece is over $400. You know, it doesn't cost that much to make that piece, but the reason that it's $400 is because they limited production on these cars. The parts are not available used. You know, if I were to buy that piece used, I think it's still like $250. But again, the parts on these cars, they don't cost any. A radiator for this car, haven't priced it yet, but I'm sure it's 75% more, or 150% more. I'd take that back. 150% to 200 times more expensive, 200% more expensive than a Pathfinder radiator, and it's exactly made out of the same shit. So it's kind of frustrating with these parts. It's not something that you know, that I just believe in common sense, and I don't believe in what they're charging for the parts in these cars. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think this is gonna be my last one of these. You know, I'll stick to something that I know better. I mean, nuts and bolts are nuts and bolts to me. If you can work on you know, certain cars, they're all the same. The only thing that makes these cars any different is the computer systems. As long as you can communicate to the computer system in this car, you can work on it. There's nothing special or fancy about these. I mean, there's, you know, obviously components and naming and different things that, you know, they're named differently, or they're called something else because it's, you know, a certain make or whatever. But a differential is a differential, a clutch is a clutch, an engine is an engine, a piston is a piston. So if you've got the concepts down, as long as you can communicate to the computer on this car, and they have many. You know, these cars probably have, you know, 30 different computers and modules in there. If you're able to communicate to them, then you should be able to work on it just fine. If you're mechanically inclined and have worked and done, you know, and know how to work on cars. I'm not saying that anybody can do it. I'm just saying that if you've worked on Mercedes, let's say, or Jag or Ford or whatever, you know, obviously Ford's a little bit you know, easier to work on, I'd say. Just because I know them a little bit better. Chevy, again, same thing, a little bit easier to work on. But you know, when I work on my Mercedes, it's a different build. It's a different build quality. It's just built differently, but it all just makes sense. Once you take it apart, you can put it back together, and that's just what I think about it. So, you know, I'm at this point, I'm kind of frustrated with the pricing on the parts on these cars. It's absolutely ridiculous. And just goofing off the other day, I was looking at exhaust. Sorry about the rant, but I got to get some of this shit out of my chest here, because it's kind of lame, actually. But I was looking at an exhaust just because I don't know, I was just sitting there researching. Hey, 'cause I had somebody tell me that they put $150,000 into one of these, plus the price of the car. So I'm scratching my head. I'm like, okay, well, that's you know, price tag on one of these I saw MSRP on one that was a 14, and it had a price tag of 104,000. Okay, it's a GTR. It was a GTR premium. Saw the MSRP on it, and it was $104,000. Okay, so you buy the car, then you immediately dump 150 grand in it. Now you're in the neighborhood of 250. Okay, I don't give a shit what's going on in GTR land. You know, they could be faster than the average bunch, or they could, you know, but it's a Nissan. I'm sorry, but I'd rather have a Lambo. Okay, I'd rather have a, you know, a AMG Mercedes. I'd rather have something that I'm not gonna, even if I had the 250 to throw out, I'm not gonna buy a Nissan GTR. Not me. So anyways, maybe it is some people, but you know, $250,000 on a Nissan GTR is out of the realm of anything that I can comprehend. So anyways, I'd rather buy a Rolls Royce, for fuck's sake. Anyways, so back to what I was talking about on the exhaust. When I was looking up just certain items, and you know, just performance parts, and I wanted to see what the hell, you know, the price range of let's say adding power to this car would cost. So I just started off obviously with the basic exhaust. You know, let's look that up. So I look up, you know, I go on one of these websites that's usually pretty inexpensive as far as you know, performance parts or whatnot. Car ID. I know most people probably heard of it or haven't. You check that out. But they offer some of the lowest pricing on some of the things that that I've purchased in the past. So I go on there, and I think the cheapest exhaust kit for this car was like $3,000. All right, so $3,000. I mean, we're talking tubing, we're talking pipe. You know, obviously it's bent, contoured. You know, so is the one on a F-250 truck, or so is the one on a Mustang GT. So is the one on. Pipe is pipe, guys. I don't care, you know, what it's made out of. There's no justifying a piece of pipe costing Now that was the cheapest one, $3,000. These things went up to $5-6 grand. You know, I don't care what kind of bend it is. I mean, mandrel bending is the nicest bend you can get. You know, you obviously don't want the kinked up shit or whatever, and make it look nice. But mandrel bending is mandrel bending. Okay, so you can't tell me that an exhaust for an F-250 will cost me $500, all stainless, or they have titanium too, which is a little more pricey. But you know, even if it was made out of titanium, what the fuck? Anyways, again, that was just for an exhaust system. You know, you look at turbos and upgraded shit for the engine, and stage 1 this and stage 2 that, and I think Alpha has a nice setup for these cars. Just ridiculously overpriced. I mean, some of the kits on these cars, 25,000. We're talking 20, 25,000, 15,000 on the cheap side, and then you have to pay to install it. You know, obviously, if you don't work on your own car, that's going to be a shitload of money. Just don't agree. I just don't agree. I mean, it's something that you know, it's for somebody. It's just not for me. So I'm just going to leave it at that. You know, I'm a little confused as to why somebody would spend 150,000 plus the cost of the car, and to come up to 250,000 for this. You know, people buy houses for that. You know, it's just an argument that you know, even if you had the money, even if I had the money, you know, 200 to throw away, because it is what you're doing. These cars, you're never going to get $250,000 back out of the car, that's for sure. So even if you had the money to throw away, would you throw it away? I mean, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. I'm sure some people are going to be pissed at what I'm talking about, and they're going to be complaining and talk. Go ahead and talk all your shit. Say what you have to say in the comments. I don't really care. I don't have to agree with what you agree with, and you don't have to agree with with what I agree with. So, you know, that's what the beauty of you know, everybody's different, I guess. So, anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm going a little off on this one, but this is what we got going on this video. We're gonna continue on. We're gonna get the rest of this patched up, and then we're gonna say la vie. So, anyways, you guys have fun. Have fun on your builds, your projects, your cars. Don't spend $250 on one of these. Go spend it on something hot like a Rolls or a Bentley or shit. If you have the money to toss around like that, shit, go buy a private jet or something. Get around faster than this, you know. Anyways, we'll talk to you guys later. Have fun. Take care.